My name is Keeley. I have 4 kids that are amazing, and I am from California. Now I live in Tennessee. I have a really big family. So I have 8 brothers and 3 sisters, and we're kind of a blend of families. But we all, with the exception of 2, all lived in the same house growing up. And it was just kind of crazy. We had, probably because there was 8 boys, and it was, I was in the middle of all of the boys, and it was always something hectic, like we were running to sports and running, and because there's so many of us, but also it was kind of difficult because we just did not have a lot. So we, when I was younger, tried to work like farm life, I guess, a little bit. But we moved out of that when my mom married my stepdad. And it was just not easy. We had about 15 of us that lived in a 3-bedroom house. So it was just a lot of hectic and chaos things going on all the time. If I'm ever talking to somebody and I say my dad, and I'm telling a story, I talk about my stepdad. My real dad went to prison when I was younger, and I think he ended up being charged with 8 separate things, but when they came and arrested him at our house, he was originally arrested on 78 counts of rape. And him and my mom had been involved, like really involved in our church, and they were just kind of a couple that people trusted with their kids and trusted for him to teach them lessons and do things, and he had other intentions that were not good. And so he went to prison, and for a while they stayed together. And my mom was she was trying to do the right thing, but in a very legalistic way for the Lord. And so we would have to go see our dad on Sundays after church and play red light, green light at the prison. And I did get a Hawaiian punch out of the vending machine, which was exciting for me because we didn't have like a lot of sweets and treats. So but yeah, and after she did divorce him, she remarried my stepdad, who for a while was a great dad. And that's why normally if I say my dad, that's who I'm referring to. But when she did meet him, he was in recovery for alcoholism, and he fell back into that after a while, and it just changed who he was as a person. He was I was like the girl in the middle of all these boys, and he was like the person that made me feel confident and I could count on to be there for me. And then all of a sudden he was like this violent person that was kind of unrecognizable to who he was before. And eventually he just found someone else and left, and it was like he still had a relationship with my younger siblings that are his kids, but not the older ones so much. So we were we were at church all the time. But when I was little and my mom was with my real dad, it was very, like I said, it was very legalistic. And, you know, girls had to wear hats and dresses. And that was something that, cutting your hair was something that took my mom a long time to let go of. And when she married my stepdad, we went into like a non-denominational church. And I still think about that church all the time. There were people there who were amazing, but they were involved in that church as well, like my mom and my stepdad. And they even one day had a Father's Day special, and they did a video, and they wanted examples of great fathers, and they shot the video of my stepdad, and they interviewed us kids and asked us like what makes him a great dad. But at the same time, our home life didn't really align with church life, and it felt like you had to be two different people in depending on which place you were in. And so we heard about the Bible. We were in church. We heard the things of God. But I don't think that I really knew how to apply those things to my life. It was, we go here to feel good and get a little boost, and then we go home and there's chaos. So my stepdad had started drinking, and at first it was like we had so many kids. Some were older and some were younger, and to the older kids it was like, oh, like our dad's cool now because we can they would have parties at the house and have people over, and everybody would drink. And when I was younger, I would want to go outside and hang out with the older kids and be cool, but it wasn't like a regular thing. I just wanted to be able to hang out with the big kids. And we moved houses, and my brothers lived in a house that was on the same property, kind of next door to the house that we lived in. And I was staying at my house waiting for one of my friends to come get me for a volleyball tournament. And my brothers had a party over at their house. So I walked over there and I drank with everybody there, and like too much. And then my brother walked me back home and put me in bed because he was like, you've done too much. But in all of these situations, I always felt like I have my big brothers around, so, I'll be okay. And one of his older friends just waited till everyone went to sleep and came over to our house. And I was 15, and so I was sexually assaulted by this man that was in his 20s. And then I found out a little while later that I was pregnant. And I think that there's a misconception about when you are, especially when you are assaulted by somebody that you sort of know, and that it takes away all of your safety. Like, if you think you know somebody and then you don't really know who's trustworthy afterwards. And there's also like a lot of blaming myself. I blamed myself a lot because I thought, well, I shouldn't have gone over there, and maybe I should have, like, no's not enough. I should have done more, and I should have, never tried to hang out with the big kids, and I should have not tried to fit in. And shortly after that happened, we moved away to a new town that was about 5 hours away. And I didn't know anybody, and I was about 6 months pregnant. And I remember just laying in my bed and crying, and I would have just like these wet spots on my bed, just where I cried and cried and cried, and I couldn't have even verbalized why, or why I was just so sad. After I had my daughter, it was like, it turned into, I don't want to feel my feelings. And so I would try to look for any reason to drink, and just drink until I did not remember what I had done. And it's such a sneaky thing, because drinking is so socially acceptable, even when you are a teenager and it is illegal. It's still, you can look like a perfectly normal teenager and be in an addiction, and in something that, just going down a road that is so unhealthy. And it always looked like fun. And so there were times that me and my best friend would go down to Mexico and just pretend like we were older than we were down there. And we would meet people and say that we were older than we were, and go just I look back on the situations and I think it is a miracle that I'm alive and that I wasn't taken somewhere, or I know one night we got separated from each other for a while, and we're down in Mexico, and I couldn't find her for hours, and I was just wandering around drinking asking people had they seen her, and someone came up to me and said, "Oh, we know where your friend is." And a decision I would have never made sober was they called someone, and this man pulled up in a SUV, and they were like, "We'll take you to her." And I just got in and went with these men down through these roads in Mexico, and thank God that they did take me to her, and I found her. But yeah, it was just going out and looking for any reason to drink and any reason to really like it almost doesn't make any sense to say like that you were assaulted and it made you feel empty, so then you went looking for people to sleep with. But it's like you're trying to fix it somehow. Like, if I don't say no to anybody, then I'm getting to choose. But would it would never feel any better. And it would just make me feel less and less of myself and more ashamed of myself, because I did grow up hearing about God. And I just felt like I have heard that you're supposed to do life differently, but I've just done too many wrong things to do it that way now. I think that when I was pregnant with my daughter, I knew that God wanted me to keep her. And I didn't know how I knew that. I just knew it. Like, there was something inside of me that I couldn't make a different decision. And I just had to keep her no matter what. Even when I was talking with the detectives that were on my case, one of them had said to me at one point, we can make exceptions for things like this if you change your mind about keeping her. And I was about 5 months pregnant, and I told him, I can feel my baby moving around inside of me, and I'm going to keep her. And I knew that God wanted me to keep her, but I really didn't know exactly why. And I would say this entire time, if someone asked me if I believed in God, I would say yes. But that was pretty much the extent of my believing in God was, yeah, I do, but I don't have a relationship with him, and I don't try to live my life any sort of way that would represent that. I don't think that depression and wanting to attempt suicide just kind of happens overnight. And I would say that when I started wanting to fit in with other kids, and I started wanting to go drink and hang out with the older kids when I was 12 years old, I had thought, well, it would just be easier if I wasn't here. But that was all that I would think about it. And then as I got older, and after I was assaulted, I thought, well, now I have to be here for this baby. And after she was born, and I started just drinking more and going out more, and I just started feeling more and more empty. And the more people that I tried to meet and the more people that I tried to party with to feel like somebody loved me and somebody cared about me, and I was gonna, like, I had this idea in my mind that I was gonna meet just one person in my life that was going to make everything all better. And when it seemed like that was never going to happen, and I had thoughts like, well, nobody's going to want a single mom, and no one's going to want someone who was a teen mom, and everyone thinks that you're trash, and everyone looks down on you, and you could have done more with your life, but you're not doing anything. Like, you brought the baby into the world, and that was all you're supposed to do, so there's no reason for you to be here anymore. And so after we had moved, I just thought, I did what I was supposed to do, and now I just don't have a purpose now, and the way that I live my life, I think that my daughter would probably be better off without me. And I thought she was so amazing, and I thought somebody who is so much more capable and could provide for her so much better would love to have a baby, and there's no way I'll ever be able to give her a good life as a teen mom and someone who doesn't come from a lot and just feels trapped in a life of nothing. And so I decided that I didn't want to be here anymore. And thankfully, my mom took me to the hospital, and I ended up being put in a psychiatric facility for a little bit, and I would love to say that it was like they fixed me or something, but I started taking antidepressants, and I actually just felt like after that I wasn't sad, but I was just nothing. I couldn't feel anything at all. And even when I, before, even in sadness, I could look at my daughter and she would do something cute and it would make me smile. And I'll never forget, one day she came up to me and she did something cute, and in my mind, like, I knew it was cute, and I knew that my reaction should be, oh, that's so precious. But I had to make myself smile at her for her, because I just felt nothing, and like there was no emotions and nothing inside. And that was just a really hard time of feeling like I'm not even like a broken human anymore. I just don't even feel like one at all. When I had Jordan, there was a girl. I had been going to a youth group while I was pregnant, and there was a girl from the church who bought her a take-home outfit to wear home from the hospital. And it ended up being an ordeal because I had actually been told by the doctor that Jordan was going to be a boy. So all of her things were boy things. And her take-home outfit was a boy's outfit. And this girl, I remember her coming and picking it up and taking it back to the store and trading it for a girl's outfit. And it was the only girl thing that she had when I was going to bring her home that day. And I wish that I could remember her name, but I just remember that I thought all of these horrible things about myself, and I felt like everyone looked down on me, but this one girl from my youth group just was so sweet to me, and she went out of her way to make me feel like I was loved and like Jordan was loved. And I would say that even at the time, I didn't really probably recognize or appreciate what she had done, but I have never forgotten what she did. And looking back on it, I just know that she had the love of Jesus in her, because I felt like this girl just cares about me and doesn't judge me, and I don't understand why. When my dad was in prison, he made a friend who would eventually become my grandpa, and we called him G-Tep instead of Grandpa Tepper. But he would be in and out of prison throughout our childhood. And when we were teenagers, he was coming out, and he was going to be legit now. And he was going to run a business and do everything the right way. And he helped my parents buy a house, and it turned out that this was not the new leaf that we thought was being turned over. And at the same time that we were finding that out, and that the payments we had been making on our house were not actually going to our house at all, my stepdad left. He met a woman at a bar, and then 4 days later he announced that he was leaving the family to go be with her. And so my parents split up, and we were losing our house, and my mom decided to get us a house in Mexico, and I couldn't even tell you what happened with that. We drove all over California. I know that. We drove up and down California, and then ended up in Fresno. And we ended up getting into the the housing authority helped us stay at a motel for a while, but there was quite a few of us, and I had the baby, and it was a pay by the hour motel in a really rough part of Fresno. So it was just, I would say that now as a mom, looking back, a really terrifying situation, but as a teenager who just thought, it's so easy to buy weed in this neighborhood, I did not realize what well, I did not realize really how bad it was. And um, everything is just, I try to just laugh everything off, really. Um, I remember one time my little sister, and she was so sweet. She's more than 10 years younger than me, so she was little, and she was watching all of these women out by the road yelling at cars. And she said, excuse me, should I go ask them who they're looking for? And I was like, oh no, honey, you just stay with me. Don't go over there. Um, but I kind of had this idea in my head that um, I had already made it through the worst, and I thought, I don't know, I had this, I would just walk myself into dangerous situations by thinking I just don't really care about what happens to me because I've already been through it. We were in Fresno, and we were living in a house, and it was, we also had like other people living with us. Um, some of my brother's friends and some of my mom's friends' kids were renting space, so we could all afford this house. And I actually met my first husband on MySpace. And he sent me a message and asked me to come hang out, and I said, absolutely not. I'm not gonna go hang out with a stranger from the internet. And one of the girls that was renting space at our house came, and she said, oh, you've got to go hang out with that guy. He's so cute. And he's in the Navy. And I was like, no, but he kept talking to me, and eventually I said, okay, I'm definitely not coming to your house, but you can take me on a date. And so he came and took me to the movies. But we did not date very long before we got married. And I thought after I had my daughter that I had to make a family. Like, I had to somehow make a whole family because that's how it's supposed to look. And while we clearly had fun and got along, but we only dated for probably 3 or 4 months before we got married, and I just wanted a way out of my house and a way for my daughter out of the house. And I thought, now our life is complete because we look like a whole family. And I had just turned 18, probably like 2 weeks before we met, and was really not prepared to be a wife or to move away from most of the people that I knew and go live on a military base. And we both liked to have people over, and we both liked to drink, and we both also liked to just get in terrible fights with each other and do things to antagonize each other. And we got in an argument one time, and he grabbed me by the arm, and I said, I think that you broke my wrist. And he said, no, I didn't. And eventually I was like, I think that it's broken. I need to go to the hospital. And so he took me to the hospital, and he dropped me off outside of the emergency room, and he said, call me when you're done, and left. And then it was broken. And I came back home, and I told him it's broken. And I said, are you not going to apologize or say anything at all? And he said, well, I didn't do it. You did that because I told you, don't touch me. And I think that was just like, I had also just had a baby. We had just had a baby together, and I thought, I can't keep my girls here. It wasn't the first time that we had gotten in an argument and something had happened, but that was the worst time that we had gotten in an argument and something had happened. So I got my girls and went to one of my friends' houses on base. There had been a time when right before I got married, that I wanted to leave my house. And I called one of my friends from back home, and she said, I wasn't 18 yet, and she said, my dad's going to come pick you up. You can come stay with us. And I was like, oh, I'm going to go stay with this other family. It's going to be good. And so me and my mom had gotten in an argument, and I put a bunch of my stuff in bags and Jordan's stuff, and her dad came and got me. And it was like a 45-minute drive from where I lived to where she lived. So I was riding in the car with her dad, and he had asked me while we were in the car if I had ever had sex for money before. And I said no, and I was just sitting in the car thinking, like, I've made a mistake. And now I'm stuck in this car with this man and my daughter. And I went to her house, and I stayed the night there and said, I'm going to go back home because I can't stay here. So then when I had gotten married, and I left and I went and stayed at my friend's house, and I was in the room that I was staying in one day, and her husband came in and said something similar, and I thought, there is nowhere that I can go that this is not going to happen. I had a friend who had moved to Tennessee when we were in the 3rd grade, and I talked to her on the phone, and she said, you like being outside, and Tennessee is always green. And I said, okay, I'm coming. So I tried to save up some money, and I probably had like $500, which was gone in gas by the time I got to Tennessee. But I just put whatever I could of mine and my girls in my truck and drove out to Tennessee. And I ended up getting a job as a waitress. And then I found a mobile home that was rent by the week. And I thought, well, this is perfect because I'm making tips. And I just drove out here and set up for me and my girls. Well, my girls were still really young. Tegan was about a year old, and Jordan was 3. And I was working different jobs. I like serving tables and bartending, and I made friends through work. So, of course, just more people who liked drinking like I did. And it seemed like every time I always wanted to like fall in love. I always went back to this idea in my head that I was going to meet somebody, and then we were going to be a whole family, and then everything would be all better. And somehow that was going to fix everything. And I would date people and everything would not be fixed, and then I would be really upset that everything was not better, and I didn't know how to just fix this void that I had in my life. And we had a reason to go out all of the time. So we would have like, it's Monday night blues, so we need to go drink. It's Tuesday night shenanigans, so we need to go drink. It's hump day, so we need to go drink. And then Thursday was pre-weekend, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday it's the weekend, so of course you can drink. And I had these little girls, and I thought, well, I'm doing a great job because, they go to bed and then I leave, and they don't know what I'm doing, and so how's it going to hurt them if they don't know what I'm doing? And I was always worried about my kids, but I never cared about what it was doing to me. I started dating someone and felt like I got my heart broken, and I don't even remember most of the night, even though that was pretty normal. And I got a DUI, and I ended up having to go to jail for longer than usual because my blood alcohol level was so high. And I got put on probation, and my probation officer had talked to me about going to church. And she had said that I could do my community service at church, and I thought, well, that's probably the easiest way to do it. Some of my family had moved out to Tennessee as well, and they already went to a church, so I thought, well, I'll just go where they go, and I'll have the pastor sign off on my community service, and I won't really have to do anything. So I tried to cheat the system, I guess. And I was just having to go to church every Sunday, and I just really did not want to go, and I really did not want to get up that early, but I had to go for a year. And then once it was over, once my probation was over, I didn't go to church one Sunday, and then I was like, I missed church, and I don't know why. I don't know why I missed going to church. And I was actually driving. I was driving someone else's car, and I was flipping through the radio stations, and I heard this song come on the radio, and it was just really like uplifting and like a fun little pop song. And I thought, well, I've never heard this before in my life. And so I turned it up and I was trying to listen to it, and I completely missed my exit and then ran out of gas. And so then I was stuck on the side of the road and I had to sit and wait. And I didn't realize that I had turned on K-Love until it went to commercial. And then they were doing a 30-day Christian music challenge. And they said, well, why don't you do this 30-day Christian music challenge and see how it will impact your life. And if your life is not better, or you don't find that you've, found more joy during those 30 days, let us know. But we think that it'll make all the difference. And I thought, well, I guess I liked church, so I'll try this 30-day music challenge. And so I did that, and I also, in the process, had to find all the different types of Christian music, because after about a week of listening to the Christian radio, I was like, I can't do this. So I downloaded all sorts of different types of Christian music on my phone, and I thought, I'm just going to do this 30-day challenge and see if it makes my life better, like they say. And I did that, and at the same time, I decided that I wanted to keep going to church, and our pastor had an altar call, and I wanted the peace and the joy and the things that I had kept coming to hear about. And there was a couple at church who I knew had struggled with addiction before, and I knew that they knew that I had only started coming because I was on probation, but it didn't stop them from acting like they really cared that I was there. And they just made me feel like I belonged there, and I wasn't being judged. And so that was the start of wanting something different for myself. And really also my daughters still played into it, because I had just found that even if I could play supermom and then go live a different life behind their backs, eventually they're going to find out. They're not going to be little kids forever. And it would be so much better for them if I could be the person that I actually want them to see. I think of just God turning our sorrow into joy. And even the things that you go through that seem sorrowful are transformed once you look back on them and know that they brought you to the Lord and brought you to where you are. So I had been going to church, and then I went up while I was going to church, and I was on probation, and I decided I'm gonna actually do something with my life. I decided that I wanted to go back to school, and I started tutoring this man in English, and we started dating, and I I had invited him to church with me, but I wouldn't even say that when we first met, I wouldn't even say like, "Oh, this is my boyfriend." I felt like I had the dream of this is going to fix everything, and then I thought it's just not going to happen. Um, but we started dating, and as we are dating, I went up front for an altar call at church, and the pastor stopped me on the way out, and he obviously was excited. He knew I had been in his church for a year now for probation, and he stopped me and he said, "Oh, he was so happy and welcome to the family." And he said, "You should really go home and start reading in Luke." And he gave me Gospels to read and how I should read them. And I thought, well, I'm not going to do that. Because I've already grown up in church, and I've heard a lot of this before. But if somehow I'm going to have what you have, I'm going to believe that what God says is true, and I'm going to believe that the Bible is true, then I want to read it the way that God gave it to me. So I decided I was going to go home and start reading in Genesis and then read through the entire Bible. And that took about a year. And as I was doing that, I was excited to apply biblical things to my life, because I thought, "Oh, this is going to fix me. This is going to fix my life." And if you apply biblical principles to your life, things will start to look better because God is faithful to his word. But it still wasn't really settled in my heart that I'm doing these things because I love Jesus. And I was just reading through the Bible, and I was amazed at some of the stories that I was reading, but I was also just trying to almost look for an instruction on how to fix your life. And we were dating as I was going through this. So when we started dating, we could drink together, we could sleep together, and that was fine. That's what I had been doing. But as I got further into it, and then when I got to the Gospels, I started to feel convicted about things in my life, and I thought, oh, like I'm not supposed to be I'm not supposed to be doing some of the things that I'm doing. And this is the way that God wants me to do it. So I had said that I didn't want to do those things anymore, and it was an argument. And I kept getting a lot of pressure to keep going back and keep doing that. And so eventually I actually broke up with him and said, okay, I want to live my life this way. So I don't think that we're going to work. And he really didn't believe me. I told him I prayed about it, and I feel like this is the right thing to do. I feel like we're not supposed to be together. And he was really upset and kind of mocked me and was like, okay, God told you. That's great. But after I got through the whole Bible, I got invited to this little church down in Morristown, and I had never been there before. And this man from West Virginia came to share his testimony and preach about the Holy Spirit, and he said, if you want to receive the Holy Spirit, come up front. And so far I had been I'm reading through the Bible to try and learn how to fix my life, and I'm showing up at church because for some reason it makes me happy, but I'm not sure why. And then I went up to the altar, and when I knelt down at the altar, I know it was like all in an instant I went back to being 17, 16, and being pregnant and crying on my bed. And my mom had come and found me in my room, and she said, honey, what's wrong? And I said, I don't know. And she was like, it's going to be okay. And I didn't feel better. I didn't feel better. And then she went and got my stepdad. And my stepdad said, it's going to be okay, and we're going to take care of you, and we're going to make sure your baby's taken care of. And that reassurance from my dad made me feel better. And it was not shortly after that he had left, and we lost our home. And I feel like God took me to that moment and showed it to me, and then showed me just chasing after person after person. And he said, you have been looking for a father, and I am the father. Come to me. And I just know that I was down at the altar, and I just had this peace come over me, like I don't need all the people, and I don't need this step by step on how to change my life. Like, I found my dad. And I just could not help but sit there and cry, and I was saying, oh, praise you, Jesus, like, thank you, Jesus. This is what I've been looking for. And I felt a little different because I had never been in this church, and I did not know a single person there, but I could not help but just praise the Lord, because when the Holy Spirit came into my heart, like, it was like everything that I had been searching for, and the void that I had been missing and desperately trying to fill, like, it was the piece that fit perfectly. And I just was driving home that night, and I was like, I am happy. I have joy. I don't think that I know that I have never known the joy that I feel right now. And that was I think probably for the next year and a half, I was just like, every single person needs to know Jesus. Every single person needs to know about Jesus and what he has done, and I want to know more, and I want to I just want to do what he wants me to do because this is it. And then the person that I had broken up with, I got a call from their brother, and he said, I really need you to talk to my brother. He's not doing well, and he really needs the Lord. And so I agreed to do that, and I went and I talked to him, and I just talked to him about, we both had grown up going to church and then left it. And so I talked to him about that, and I was just telling him that I wanted better for him, and I was expecting an argument, and he did not argue, and he was like, you know what, you're right. It was probably a few weeks later, he called me again, and his brother called me again, and they said, he went to church this morning, and he went up to the altar, and he got saved. And I was really happy for him. And then it was like 2 weeks after that I found out that I was pregnant. And I knew that I was supposed to walk away from that relationship at one point. And then when I found out that, he had told me he got saved, and then I found out I was pregnant, and I thought, maybe was it supposed to only be for a time, or what? I don't know what's happening here really. And I also feel like because I had started going to church, and I really wanted to do what I thought was right for the Lord. And the people around me, I feel like there was a lot of pressure to get married. And it sounds kind of silly to me now, but I almost felt like I had my fairy tale idea for so long, and maybe I was just so wrong, and the real life version was not that, and somehow this was gonna work. And there must be a reason. Obviously, I don't think that any babies are by accident. I think that everyone is a gift from God and a blessing. And so it was like I used a lack of biblical knowledge, but I used biblical knowledge to talk myself into going back to what I had walked away from. And so we ended up getting married, and I thought, if I just do everything the right way, and I pray, and God will work everything out. And I think that ended up being true, but not in the way that I thought that it would. I had this idea of just we would serve the Lord together, and everything about our lives would be like what God wanted. And that was just not the case. I had encountered the Holy Spirit in a way where I knew that I wanted my life to reflect Jesus. And I wanted to find out what that meant, like, to him and for him, and what would it mean for me to be in the will of God, and what is his purpose and plan for my life. That is what I want for my life. And but I was trying to fit in someone who did not have the same feelings, and also while I'm trying to be this wonderful Christian wife, of this idea of one that I had in my mind, I'm trying to let someone lead who wanted to lead in a different direction from where I wanted my family and myself to go. And I know that God was protecting us. I know that God was all throughout our marriage. I would just, even in, you know, going through things like infidelity and emotional abuse and those things, I know from my past how I would have reacted to those things before. And I also know that I wouldn't have ever been able to sit down and articulate how I was feeling and say, this is how I want things to go moving forward. And I just I did not have the self-control or the patience to be able to do those things. But going through that with Jesus, I feel like he grew me so much in having those things, even through really deep hurt. And even when it's a hurt that you didn't bring on yourself, but and also just trying to grow in his word, because I knew something was not right, and I couldn't figure out why are we not seeing a blessing, or why are we not seeing the things that I know God offers in marriage and through families. Like, there must be something that I am missing. And so going through that really hard time really just made me dig deeper into the Word of God and really want to know, what does he have to say about this, and what is his promise to me for this, and what are the things that I can hold on to, really, to get through it. And I think that I got this tunnel vision where I thought, well, now that I'm married, I have to be married forever because I love Jesus, and I know that God hates divorce, but and then I really learned that God hates divorce because Jesus would never separate himself from us. Once we come into a relationship with him, once we have that moment where God said, "Come to me," and I accepted Jesus as my Savior, he was not going to separate himself from me. He was not going to let me go out of his hand. And marriages are supposed to be a representation of that relationship that Christ has to the church. And God doesn't hate divorce so much that he wants me to live the rest of my life being abused as some sort of sacrifice to him. But God hates divorce because he loves his children so much that he will never leave them or forsake them. And he really just had to teach me that it can look messy, and it can not look like someone else's walk, and you're just going to have to trust that it's not this complete family that you've thought is going to fix everything, but it is me and you. And you just hold on to me, and I will make a way, and I will provide, and I will bring healing to your family. And so when we split up, I had been a stay-at-home mom for 6 years, and I can say financially there is no logical explanation for how I was able to provide for my children, but God made a way. And it was like every step of the way, he would just bring someone to us, or a job or something that was, we don't have to worry about what to eat or what to drink, but God is going to provide for us, and he has. But not only in that way, but both of my youngest, Reuben and Teddy, in the last year have gotten saved. And Reuben is like, I want to read my Bible. He wants to memorize the book of John. You can go through and ask him, what happens in this chapter, and he'll tell you the story that happens in that. And he is in love with Jesus, and I love to see it. And I don't want to ever diminish the role of a dad in kids' lives, because it is so important. And the missing that is what caused so much hurt in me. But also, I know that God is able to heal that, and able to provide that missing piece when it is missing. And so it's not that I had to make a family to make everything whole for my daughter, but I just had to hang on to Jesus and say, whatever it is that you want, whatever it is that you ask me to do, that is what I want from my life. And then he fills in the rest. And it's not in another person, and it's not even in the church people and how they may look at you. But it is solely in your relationship with the Lord and just pursuing him. And it's like the closer you get to him, it doesn't make you want it any less. It's like the closer you get, the more you want. And the closer you get, the more you want. And that's really been the last year of my life. Is I wake up and I'm like, Jesus, I thank you that I'm awake, even when it's early and I don't want to be up. But and learning how to cry out to God in a very honest way, and not relearning even prayer, because I grew up in church and then I saw it, and then we have prayers where we say repeat after me, and those can be great in moments. But my prayer life when I'm alone with God sometimes is, God, I'm still worried that, I might not be able to do this for my kids, or I'm still worried about this. And I want you to turn me into someone who doesn't even worry. I want you to make me into the type of person that just could walk out in the street, and even if I had to walk away from my house and everything, and fully trust that you were going to make a way, I want to be that type. I want to be that type of Christ follower. And I know that I'm incapable of doing that without you putting it in my heart first. So I'm telling you all of the ugliness in me, and if there's anything else in me, I want you to fix it. I want you to just be close to me and be my Father. And I think that I always my daughter always asks me if I'm gonna date. And I always say, I'm married to Jesus. What are you talking about? And she says, I knew you were gonna say that. But it really is true that we are the bride of Christ. And oh my goodness, I tried to submit to someone who was completely worldly, and how much better it is to submit to the one who I know loves me beyond all comparison and who died for me. And the same way that I would go out of my way to make sure things were clean and in order, and have plans, and make sure that friendships were strong, and is the same way that I want to go out of my way for the Lord and what He wants from me. And I really do just think of it as like, this is my marriage. I want to roll over in my bed in the morning and wake up thinking about the Lord and ask, what do you need from me today? um, so I guess it is, and I've never really thought about this or said this, but it is my fairy tale that I thought would always happen, but it is with Jesus. And it wasn't a person that I needed to find here, but it was always going to be, I was going to find my relationship with Jesus, and it was going to fix, and it was going to heal, and it was going to complete. So